All over the world, there are ancient mysteries left behind by our ancestors. They created wonderful monuments, glorious temples, and remarkable pieces of technology that we can't even begin to understand. They're a mystery to us, but they're also a mystery to archaeologists and scientists. And some of the best of them are here in this video. Our trip across the ancient world begins here, on the sacred Japanese island of Yakushima. It's only 17 miles wide and almost entirely made from granite. Scientists think it was most likely created by an enormous volcanic eruption about 15 million years ago. However, some people believe that a few of the stranger stone formations on the island were built by hand. The most famous of them is at the peak of Miyanoradake, which is also home to a Shinto shrine. The arrangement of a smaller flat stone atop a larger one makes it look vaguely humanoid and has earned it the nickname the Guardian of Yakushima. Some people also claim to be able to see faces on the side of the 7,000-year-old Japanese cedar tree called Jomonsugi elsewhere on the island. Elsewhere, you'll find enormous, smooth, curved boulders that look like they've been carved into segments with laser precision, and perfectly square rocks that might have been quarried thousands of years ago. It's difficult to separate myths from legends on this island, but it's fair to say that there's more to its history than scientists are currently able to explain. If you look at the rock formations and carvings at the Indian site of Sahasra Linga and find yourself thinking of the science fiction movie Stargate, you're not alone. Thousands of people have made the same connection. While we don't think that aliens are responsible for creating this wondrous site in Karnataka, we're at a loss to say who did. It seems the origins of the engravings were lost when the area was flooded and became a reservoir. Only when the reservoir was drained again did people take an interest in the unusual designs. By that point, centuries had passed, and water had destroyed any chance we might have had of identifying their origin by way of archaeological evidence. There are the remains of inscriptions still visible around some of the shapes, but they're too badly weathered to be accurately deciphered. What's especially curious about the shapes is that they seem to have been made with an advanced form of stone cutting technology, one that wouldn't have existed before the flood and the establishment of the reservoir. It's become a popular pilgrimage site, but thus far, it's kept all of its secrets. The fact that our ancient ancestors knew so much about how to manipulate and manage the flow of water never fails to impress us. Here we see an ancient system of aqueducts that's recently been discovered in Borujd, Iran. The entire elaborate system was built as part of a castle and was found accidentally during construction work in the area. It's thus far proved to be impossible to provide an accurate date for the aqueducts, but they're so old that they used pottery crocks as a way of purifying the water. That's a very old but very effective trick. History tells us that Borujd was once a heavily fortified town surrounded by almost 60 towers, with a series of castles within it. This particular castle may even have belonged to the local government, which would explain why its builders went out of their way to ensure it had a ready supply of clean water. The pipes are delicate, which has left archaeologists with a problem. Should they attempt to break the pipes apart and take them away for further study? Or should they leave them in situ? They haven't reached a final decision yet, so they're doing all they can to study them while they're still in place. It seems reasonable to believe that our ancient ancestors knew a few ways to cut and shape rock that has been forgotten over the passage of time. In many places across the world, there are stones that appear to have been sliced through like butter to achieve their current shapes, but that ought to be impossible. What if it wasn't, though? What if our ancient ancestors knew of a way to soften stone by mixing different plants together and applying the mixture to the surface of hard rock? That sounds ridiculous, but look at the famous handprints of White Mountain in Wyoming, USA. How were they created? Clearly, somebody carved them into the rock. but the carvings are smooth and look like they were left in wet cement. The existence of such a plant mixture would certainly explain how our ancestors were able to move, cut, and shape enormous stones that weighed hundreds of tons. The big question, of course, is what these plants could have been and where to find them. If they ever existed at all, perhaps they were overused to such an extent that one or more of the species of plant involved in the mixture is now extinct. If we're talking about ancient cultures and their fantastic technological achievements, it would be wrong of us not to mention the ancient Inca culture of South America. How is it that they were able to cut a square aqueduct into a volcanic rock 1,000 feet above sea level 3,500 years ago in Chamas, Peru? It might even be the case that this is the work of an advanced civilization that came before the Incas, but they've left no trace of themselves in the area to help us identify them. Even the name of the site, which is Cumbe Mayo, just means thin river. It doesn't give us any clues about who made the oldest human-built structure in all of South America. The precisely carved aqueduct channels water from melting snow all the way down the mountain to the cities in the dry valleys below it. It's a work of ingenuity, and it makes us wonder whether the stone monks, which are allegedly naturally occurring 60-foot-high volcanic pillars above the aqueduct, are truly natural in origin after all. In Saudi Arabia's Taima Oasis, you'll find the Al-Nazla Rock Formation, a striking-looking megalith that appears to have been split perfectly in two using some form of cutting technology and then mounted on a rocky pedestal. The official explanation for its unusual appearance is that it's a freak occurrence that happened naturally, but not everybody is so sure. There's an engraving of what may be a horse or a camel on one side of the rock, one which was made around 4,000 years ago. So it's clear that our ancestors did at least a little sculpting work on the rock at that time, and may have been responsible for slicing it in half with such laser-like precision. Obviously, they didn't have lasers at their disposal, so the big question is how they could have gone about it. The answer, unfortunately, is that we have no idea. Perhaps that's why scientists would prefer us to believe that it's split in half due to weathering, and hope that we don't ask any further questions about it. Close to Asuka Historical Park in Japan, we have another megalith that defies explanation. There are many megaliths inside the historical park, but you have to travel just over 60 miles away from it to find Ishinohoden. Still partially attached to the gigantic boulder it was carved from, Ishinohoden is 18 feet high, 20 feet wide, and 23 feet thick. The total volume of this giant carved stone is somewhere between 500 and 600 tons. It's a real heavyweight contender. We don't know what the original intended purpose of Ishinohoden was. It appears to have been left in an unfinished state and forgotten about by whoever carved it. There's a Shinto temple right next to it, but the temple came after the rock. It was put there because people believed the rock to be holy. Beneath the rock is an artificial reservoir that collects water, and people who live locally claim it never runs dry. The water produces an optical illusion, which gives Ishinohoden the appearance of floating above the ground. Stonehenge is the most famous ancient stone circle in England, and perhaps the most famous in the whole world, but it shouldn't be. If there were any justice, that honor would go to another stone circle that's just a few miles from Stonehenge. It's the stone circle of Avebury, and it's far more complex an arrangement of standing stones than its more famous neighbor. The ring was likely built around 4,600 years ago, and is a complicated system of circles within circles, creating an intricate pattern. Evidence suggests that there were once more than 600 stones at the site, although only 76 are still standing today. The remains of a deep trench are still visible around the outer ring of stones, with traces of a pathway leading between the inner stones also evident to the naked eye. The Neolithic people who built the Avebury stone circle went to a great deal of trouble to do so, but we have no more idea why they did it than we do about why Stonehenge was built. We can say that it was likely connected to pagan beliefs, but in reality, that's little more than a good guess. Now we're heading back to the United States of America to see Onans Gold Pyramid House in Wadsworth, Illinois. It might be styled after the far more famous pyramids of Egypt, but you only need to take one look at it to realize that it's a far more modern construction. The pyramid occupies 17,000 square feet, is 6 stories tall, and is surrounded by an artificial moat. The pyramid was built by the husband and wife team of Jim and Linda Onan, who've never gone into detail about their reasons for creating it. All they'll say is that the pyramid represents power and mystery. It's thought that the Onans are both devotees of an obscure 1970s cult based on the supposedly mystical power of pyramids. Whether that's true or not, their bizarre home is the largest gold-plated object in America. As if it wasn't weird enough already, there's also a 50-foot-tall statue of Tutankhamun standing on the pyramid's grounds. Sadly, the pyramid suffered extensive damage from a fire in mid-2018 and still hasn't been fully repaired. The glory days of this unusual landmark might be in the past. There's plenty of ancient history to look at in Ireland, but not many places possess the beauty and wonder of Newgrange Barrow. It's an ancient tomb in the Boyne Valley area of Meath and was built by Neolithic people over 5,000 years ago. Even though it's older than both Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza, it's remarkably well preserved, with the intricate swirling patterns in the rock still sharp and clearly defined. Newgrange is best described as a passage tomb, and one that was built to be in perfect alignment with the stars. The best time of year to see it is the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, because on that day, the rising sun shines through the passage and illuminates the central chamber. This would have likely had a special meaning to the people who used the site, although nobody knows precisely what that meaning might be. Getting close to the site at the solstice isn't easy though. Admission is only permitted with a ticket, and there are usually 30,000 applications each year. We're going back to England now to look at another stone circle. A stone circle that's thousands of years old, but has been discovered comparatively recently. It's believed to be a relic of the Bronze Age, and it's been hiding in plain sight in the Forest of Dean until it was finally spotted by archaeologists after an aerial survey of the site in October 2019. It's more accurate to call it a ring cairn than a stone circle, and it's believed to be about 4,000 years old. There isn't much more to it than a circle-shaped bank of earth topped with limestone. When it was first spotted from the air by a plane using light detection and ranging technology, experts initially thought that it might be a long-forgotten Second World War gun emplacement. Although several similar sites exist in the British Isles, nobody has ever been able to work out precisely what they were used for. Charcoal residues are often found between the stones, so it seems that fires were lit here, but we have no idea why. Archaeologists say it's likely to have something to do with ritual activities, but archaeologists always say that when they don't have a clue. We began this trip in Japan, and now we're returning to Japan before we say goodbye. The Yonaguni Monument is sometimes referred to as the Japanese Atlantis, which tells you straight away that it's associated with myth and legend. Even calling it a monument is controversial because opinions differ over whether it was made by human hands or whether it was formed by nature. The odd rock formation, which can be found below the waves close to the Ryukyu Islands, is thought to be at least 10,000 years old. The structures seem too perfectly formed to have been made by nature. But who would have had the technology to build like this such a long time ago? Also, going against the argument that this is a natural site is the fact that stone tools and pottery have been found here, dating back at least 4,000 years to a time when the land was above water. Sandstone can sometimes break off into straight lines or square blocks when eroded by water, but the stones at Yonaguni appear to have triangle shapes and drilled holes. What could their purpose have been? Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!